So the topic for this morning is dealing with overwhelm. And I don't need to tell you that there are times on this human journey that can be challenging and difficult. And perhaps that's why many of us come to Sangha or practice walk this path. And, this comes in the forms of disappointments, setbacks, misfortunes, even disasters that often test our strength, test our resilience. Um, and sometimes we feel ill prepared for these challenges, wondering if we even have the strength to deal with them when we get knocked over. Um, and so we're all familiar, past, present, with this experience of feeling vulnerable, feeling overwhelmed. And one of the problems of that, if we're not prepared, is that we often um, feel overwhelmed. We feel we don't really think straight. We don't use our most skillful means when we're in a situation, a crisis situation. And the tendency then is to sort of fall back on old, automated, reflexive habits that sometimes get us out of the situation in the moment, maybe help us feel better momentarily by primarily through avoidance, but don't really serve us in the long term. We know that avoidance is only a temporary solution, as we often talk about, and usually the situation, whatever it might be, comes back around and bites us. But what if we had a go-to sort of prearranged Dharma-informed strategy at hand that we could reach into or tap into whenever emotions overwhelm us? I've as some of you know, I was a practicing psychologist for 45 years, have been following this path for 20 years. And the reality is, despite my knowledge and experience, I still continue to get knocked off balance at times when I get triggered into reactivity by some challenging situation. And, so try as I might, I'm always going to be, for the rest of my days, a work in progress. I think we're all a work in progress. But this awareness reminds me that this struggle is part of the normal human experience. It's nothing about us as being weak or ineffective. It's just part of the deal. We're not broken when we struggle with crises or challenges. We're just human beings. So with that in mind, I want to review some steps for dealing with overwhelming emotions or crisis situations. Um, as a way of thinking about, forewarned is forearmed. I always get that one wrong. Forewarned is forearmed. And the first one will not come as a surprise to you, and it is our old friend noticing. When the world seems to be crashing down, um, we don't need to do anything else but notice and acknowledge that whatever's going on is difficult, is hard for us. Not just to be swept away, but to say, "Wow, this is tough." And it can be as simple as a quick moment of clarity when we're stuck in a highly charged emotional situation. And it sounds easy, but it requires some practice because it's so easy to lose ourselves in the commotion of thoughts and feelings when we're being hammered with a situation. So when we practice the skill of noticing, not just here, but throughout our lives, we catch our experiences as they unfold in the present moment. So the challenge here is to catch our feelings as we experience them in the present moment. And what that does is it opens up possibilities for making conscious choices of what to do next, not to just react reflexively, excuse me, not to just react using old strategies that aren't really effective, but making a conscious decision of how to proceed. In other words, using wisdom, using discernment before acting. And it's hard. It's hard to stop, notice, take that breath. But if we're in the middle of a crisis, it's very important that we don't just get swept away with our emotions, but we notice, we stop, we take inventory of where things are, and then we go from there. The second step in this process, as I begin to think about it, is to feel. Okay, the tendency when we feel overwhelmed is to run away, avoid, distract ourselves. And this is because, it's uncomfortable, it's painful. We don't feel okay. We don't want to be there. Um, and the only way for it to be okay, we think, is to get rid of these thoughts and feelings. We do whatever we have to in the moment to separate ourselves from that awful feeling of being overwhelmed. But the problem there again is that we fall back on old habits, anything we can do to feel better, run away, distract, engage in other activity, whatever. And sometimes this is not skillful. We might lash out, we might stuff ourselves with comfort food, we might go online shopping, we might get lost in social media, any form of escapism we might reach for. And the problem is that it works at least momentarily, but it doesn't last. And then when the next time we find ourselves overwhelmed, we go through the same cycle. We don't learn, we don't grow, we don't benefit, we don't develop more skillful strategies. Okay. Um, what we fail to realize in this situation is that even though we are feeling overwhelmed, we still have choices. So, and one of those choices is that rather than running away from those experiences, we can learn to simply be with them, just sit with them, be present with them. Here's our presence again, being present. This means taking a moment to actually check in with the body, check in with ourselves. We always talk about go to the body, explore what are we noticing internally? Where's the commotion? Where's the overwhelm manifesting in the body? In what way are we perhaps feeling steady? Can we ground ourselves in these moments? And most importantly, what is happening with our breathing? Because that's the primary source that we have at our uh, available to us for emotional regulation. If we are overwhelmed and we check in with our breathing, invariably it's going to be rapid and shallow, which just ramps up the sympathetic nervous system. It just ramps up that sense of overwhelm. If we notice what we're feeling and engage with our breath, slow it down, do the kind of breathing, the controlled breathing that quiets the nervous system, it's a critical step in managing overwhelm. But what else can we notice? What can we be curious about the experience? Can we come at it with a kind of beginner's mind? If we have a history, though, of avoiding uncomfortable feelings, and many of us do, this can be pretty scary. This could be like, I don't want to be here. I'd rather go run away and distract myself. But we have to do this being present with it in a way that we know on a gut level, we remind ourselves we're going to be okay. So we bring kindness, we bring patience, we bring self-compassion. And most importantly, we remember that whatever we're experiencing in the moment is impermanent. This too shall pass. When we're in the midst of that kind of overwhelm, it just seems like it's going to go on forever. We don't see that it's just temporary. We don't see that it's impermanent. So we need to remind ourselves this too shall pass. This is impermanent. It will not last forever. And in fact, it won't. Think about a crisis you've been in the past. It's gone. It's history. It's a memory. It didn't control you from then on. And then the third step is acceptance, our good old friend acceptance, knowing that the feelings, as I just said, are impermanent and will pass, and having the confidence that they will pass, having the confidence that we can weather the storm, having the confidence that we can get through this. Now, if it is too overwhelming, it's fine to focus outward. It's fine to take a walk. Very often I say plant your feet on the ground, feel, just sort of feel grounded, both metaphorically and literally. You may just get a glass of water. You might want to write a text. You might want to journal, take a short walk if it's not nice outside. Sometimes I'll just give my dogs a belly rub, anything to kind of ground oneself. So whenever we find ourselves struggling with feeling overwhelmed or emotional storms, these are the steps that we can initiate to help manage it skillfully. Notice that it's hard, feel it inside our body, and practice acceptance. And no, it will not eliminate the feelings, nor is it supposed to. But the aim of this practice is to develop the skill of psychological flexibility, which I talk about here. It's that idea of just being able to ride out the storm. Yes, so we can have difficult thoughts and feelings while still doing whatever our values direct us to do, whatever enriches us, whatever empowers us. And even though these experiences are uncomfortable, we remind ourselves that feelings can never harm us, they can never hurt us, they never last forever. That's what practical Dharma offers us when we feel overwhelmed. So I will stop there and let's talk